Okay, this is not going to be as interactive as the last time I was in front of you guys, but I'm going to be asking questions, and I would very much appreciate audience participation on this because what you say is going to impact what I say back and also how the rest of you react to that as well. So here we go. Business ethics, or I like to subtitle this, the morality of profits. Why profits are a good thing. I'm sure all of you, if you read the news or listen to our politicians, or at least some of them at least, are very negative on profits and business in general. So I put this presentation together to give you the other side of the story, give you some things to think about, some arguments that you can make when you're having discussion with people that say business is all bad, as a little bit of what we heard yesterday, or that profits are a bad thing. Okay, what are ethics? A couple of definitions here. Could be moral principles that govern a group or a person's behavior. Could be the rules of conduct that are recognized in respect to a particular class of human actions or a particular group. So we've heard of medical ethics, Christian ethics, business ethics. So it's the standards that people will strive to follow. Okay, so discussion topics for today is it ethical for business to seek a higher profit? That'll be the bulk of our time. Go into a little discussion about the federal minimum wage. Should that be raised to $15 an hour? I'll be very interested to hear what some of you think. There are very definitely a lot of pros that have been put out by the people who favor that. There's many negatives as well, so we'll have a discussion on that. If we have time, we'll do something I call Be the Boss, otherwise we will wrap up after that. Okay, so first of all, what is a business? Not a trick question. What is, yeah, thanks.
It's a company run by one or more people, usually selling stuff.
What?
Usually selling.
Usually selling stuff. Okay, all right, good, yeah.
It's an organization engaged in profits and in commerce.
Okay, all right. Anything else? Yes.
I would say it's any individual or organization providing value to any other individual or organization.
I think all of those work pretty well. I call it one or more people producing a product, trying to sell it in a market to customers. Okay, it's pretty general. What is a business purpose? This can be quite controversial. Yes.
Typically, it's to earn money for people to buy things.
Okay, to earn money. All right. Anything else? Yes. To create value. All right. Okay.
To make people happy with what they want.
All right. Hold that thought. We're going to come to that one. Yes. Make who rich? Okay. Yeah, they can try to do that. Yes, sir. In the back. To make jobs. Yep. So there's a lot of people that would say that all of those are part of what a business purpose is. Yes.
I'm hearing one side. There's the other side, the profit of the customer that makes a decision to make a purchase. That is a profit for them. Otherwise, they wouldn't engage in the product or the service of another.
And hold that thought too. We're going to get to that. That's exactly right. So generically, I would say to make a profit over the long run, not necessarily the short run, but to make a profit over the long run by selling products for a higher price than their cost to produce. Of course, that's the definition of a profit. Okay. So I call this the business cash cycle. There's going to be a lot going on here, so let me explain. Every business has to produce a product. That's what they do. It could be a good, something that you could hold, that you take with you. Could be a service, which is what a business does for you. Could provide advice, could cut your yard, could let you stay in a hotel overnight. So every business produces a product, could be a good or service. They try, keyword, to sell to a customer in a market. If they are successful, they get money from that customer. They turn around and use most of that to buy more resources, human resources, natural resources, capital resources, which they use, and you saw a lot of that yesterday, to make more products, try to sell to customers in the market, buy more resources, and hopefully the cycle continues on and on and on. The money that they get from the customer, I know this is hard to see from the back, but it's called sales revenue. The money that they spend on resources called expenses. If there's anything left over, hopefully there is, if they're doing a good job, then that's called a profit. All businesses have to pay an income tax, approximately 25%, and then they are left with what's called after-tax profits. If you listen to the financial news, they will sometimes refer to that as earnings, or they might refer to it as net income. It's all the same thing, after-tax Profit. Okay, so now key question. What does every business have to have in order to be successful? What do they have to have in order to be successful? Yes.
Workers.
They need workers. That's very true. That would be the human resource. Yes. Merchandise, okay, that could be a product. Yes.
Yeah.
Same thing. Okay, all right. Something else.
Customers.
Customers, yes, that's needed. But what else needs to be on that? Or maybe before that. Sorry? Money. Yep, they're going to need that in order to get started. But what do they need to be successful?
Good idea.
Okay, did you see my chart before? Tell me about that idea. That's exactly right. Good. And there we go. Yes. What is this idea? Tell me about the idea. We had ideas yesterday. What was special about it? Why do they need an idea? Why do you think? Not quite sure, but it's a
To
great.
make a good
What?
service product.
To make a good product? Okay, all right, yes.
Be able to produce something for a lower price.
To be able to start.
To be able to produce something for a
To
lower price.
produce, okay, so the idea might be to enable them to produce it for a lower price, okay? What's the more fundamental thing that they need this idea for? If they have a good idea, what happens with it versus when they have a bad idea?
They know what to sell. The
Okay,
idea is what they're selling.
okay.
The idea pleases customers.
Yes, that's what I want to get to. The purpose of the idea is to recognize that customers have a choice. Any business, in order to be successful, has to have an idea that persuades the customers to buy from them as opposed to any of their competitors. The purpose of that idea is to convince that customer that it is worth it for that customer to buy from them as opposed to any of their competitors. And that idea could be something about that product is different, is unique, it causes them to want to buy from them. So it could be their product is bigger, it's smaller, it's heavier, it's lighter, it's stronger, it's red, it's blue, it gets delivered. I stay open late, I have good service, I have people that tell people how to use the product. Whatever it is, if I'm a business person, I have to persuade my customers to buy from me. Now, could my idea actually be for a lower quality product? I didn't say no quality. I said a lower quality product. How could that possibly be? How would that work? I see you agree. Well, how could that work? Be a lower quality product. Lower cost, exactly right. And so I call that the quality price trade-off. Every businessman or woman to be successful has to understand their customers. They have to understand what does that customer want? How much are they willing to pay? If my competitors have a product that's got 5 great qualities to it and they're charging a certain price, if I say, maybe I could produce 3 of those qualities, not the other 2, I still have a good product, but I can really cut my costs down. Maybe I can attract those customers who desire that product but don't have enough money to warrant paying the that higher price. So no business can be successful without meeting customer needs. Differentiation requires understanding the quality price trade-off of every customer, because every customer has a choice. I have to understand the needs of every single one, because every single one of you can leave and go to my competitors. So that brings up what I call the beauty of capitalism. As you pointed out, nobody will buy a product unless the value to them for that product is higher than the price that they pay. And that difference is their profit. You could consider it to be that. The value to them is higher than the price they pay. But notice that in a successful business, that price is greater than the cost. Because the difference between the price that they're selling it for and the cost of all the resources that it takes to buy it, that is called the business profit. So if you think about it, what has that business done? In a capitalist society, when, let's say I'm a business person, I go out and I have certain resources that I need to produce my product, just like you saw Beatty do yesterday. But when I go out into the market and I buy all the resources I need and I bring them into my business, the price that I pay for those resources in a capitalist economy represents the effects of supply and demand that allow that price to be set at the highest and best use throughout society. So when I purchase those resources and I combine them in my business and I produce a product, what have I done? I've taken resources that are lower cost. I've made something out of them. I turn around, I price it at something that's higher than all of those resources were worth on the open market. And then I sell that to customers who value it even higher. So what is overall happening? Because of my business, I'm taking resources at a lower cost. I'm combining them because of my business idea. I'm selling it to customers at something that they value very highly. I'm doing that dozens and hundreds and thousands and millions of times. And that is why a capitalist society produces wealth, because it's doing that over and over again. Everything is voluntary exchange and free will. That's oriented. So that is the beauty of capitalism. Any questions on that? Because that is bedrock foundation for why it all works. Dozens, hundreds, thousands, millions of times, repeat all of these things over and over. Millions of people making decisions, all of which are either benefiting them or on the buy side, or benefiting them as a business on the sell side. Everybody okay with that? Okay, all right, here we go. Some more business fundamentals. To execute the idea and be competitive, business owners and managers, we're assuming private property now, so people have the ability to decide what's going to be done with their business. They have to make the following decisions. They have to decide what product are they going to make? Who's the target customer? What market am I going to reach them through? What's my price? How am I going to produce it? Where am I going to produce it? When am I going to produce it? What kind am I going to produce? How many I'm going to produce? How I'm going to sell it? Where I'm going to sell it? When I'm going to sell it? How am I going to get it from where I make it to where I'm selling it? And on and on and on. Lots and lots of things. Yes.
What about advertising?
Okay, advertising is the process of informing my target customer what it is they get out of buying my product. So yes, that's very valuable. So that's like this, that's embedded within this notion of target customer and market. What market am I going to use to reach the customer that I'm getting to? So yes, our advertising is very much involved in there too. Yep. Okay, so lots and lots of decisions. As a result of their decisions, owners receive all profits and are responsible for losses. In a capitalist country, the owners are private citizens. In a socialist country, the owners are government, in which case they really don't calculate profits. And that's a big, big downfall for a socialist country, because they have no idea if the value of the resources being used to produce the product are higher valued or lower valued than the price that they're selling at. And typically, a lot of times, socialist countries undersell, set the prices relatively low because they want to curry favor with the general public, but that comes at a cost to society, and when those build up, that's what deteriorates the capitalist country. Okay, so a couple more questions in. Some people believe that business profits are unethical. Is it ethical for a company to seek to increase profits, and is it greedy if it does? Thoughts on that? Yes.
It depends if they're improving the quality of the product, or it is in higher demand, and they do have the right to raise the price of the product because you're not required to buy it. So if you didn't want to, you wouldn't have to. But if they were lowering the price or questionable concerns were coming up in the company, then it wouldn't be ethical for them to raise the price.
Okay, so you say if the product is lower quality, then it would not be ethical for them to raise the price.
Or just like had other concerns, like maybe not paying the workers enough, or just things that.
Yeah, this is where you start getting into sort of dangerous territory. So who decides whether the workers are worth it? And what do the workers do if they decide it's not worth it? They leave. That's right. Because in a capitalist society, the workers can decide where else they want to go. Yes.
Well, it wouldn't even maybe just be including their product. If there are products that are in time for buying it, it was increasing profits, but allowing to raises to workers who have done a good job, which will thereby probably improve their job performance, which will indirectly affect your cost.
Yeah, so that's going to get into the uses of profits, which is actually going to be in a slide or two coming up. So I'll come way over here. Yes.
You can also raise morale.
Okay, so you're looking at it from an employee point of view, if they share it in the profits. Okay.
So if there's this question, is it greedy if it does? But as we've discussed, there's a difference between greed and self-interest. And even if the motivation is greed, if you think about it, as long as they're still creating value, then as far as we are concerned, we ought to let them reward themselves for continuing to create value. So if they raise their prices in order to increase profits, they have a right to do that. And if we think that that's not just, we'll just go to one of the competitors.
Yeah, and what we're sort of dancing on the edge of here is, what is the definition of greed? Like we saw from the Bill Donahue, Bill Freeman.
This is kind of adding on to what Mary said, but like as a customer, and as a business looking from a customer point of view, is like a customer puts the value on something. They are willing to pay that much, and their product is being sold, and it's at good value, then they can, I think that is not greedy or unethical to the profit.
Okay.
I
That's
see-
one that we're gonna keep
I see
going.
two problems with the question. The first one is,
Okay.
what is profit?
Yeah,
Businesses are owned by individuals, they're owned by corporations, they're owned by stock investors. A lot of people, if it's a sole proprietor, a lot of that profit is what the business owner gets to take home. So if we're saying everybody gets a salary and profit is above that,
oh yeah. Profit
Then-
is the difference between the revenue minus the expenses, and part of the expenses are the salaries that have already been paid to employees.
so if we've settled on that and we're taking the argument of, well, they're getting paid, the owner is getting paid too much, because that tends to be one of the fundamentals of this. Then how do you make a company exactly break even? How do you find that exact break even point to begin with? There's risk involved.
Right.
And so the part of that profit is the company is trying to anticipate, okay, the market need and keeping the company afloat. And so the profit can help them continue if they undersell a little bit in the next cycle.
So we're gonna get to uses of profits here, and I'm gonna pose another question then. Okay, can profits be too high? I will suggest, we're gonna talk more about this in the coming minutes. I would suggest that if profits are very, very high for a particular company, what do you think is gonna happen?
Another company.
There's the word I wanted, who said it? Okay, tell me about competition.
Well, then other businesses are gonna say, hey, that guy makes so much money, I'm gonna do that.
Yes, and that is exactly what's gonna happen. And now it won't necessarily happen overnight, but over time, another company is gonna come in and say, wow, if that person or business is able to produce a product and sell it at a price way more than their cost, that's what's leading to the very high profits, then they're gonna go in there and there's gonna be a lot of incentive for many businesses to go in there and try and figure out, how can I make that product even at the same cost and drop that price down, not have to make as much profit, but make a little bit less. Okay, now their price is lower, same quality. Now the first business is going to have to react to that. They're going to have to drop their price. And you can see they're going to ratchet down until they're achieving a typical profit that's related, for corporate finance theory, that's related to the risk of the business. So can profits be too high? The answer is, in the short run, they can be higher than average, but competition, and that's why one of those things that I mentioned yesterday, we need competition in a functioning market economy. That occurs, then that's going to beat that profit away. All right, is it ethical if some companies are more profitable than others? Something you could consider. Maybe the most profitable ones should give their excess profits to the less profitable, so results are equal. Okay, little socialist business going on there. So we're going to talk a little bit about that.
Really quick, one of the problems I see with that question is like the oil industry. A lot of them say they're making billions of dollars in profits,
Right.
but when you look at it as a percentage of their expense, they're only pulling in like 3 or 4%. So not all ways of talking about profits are even equal.
So I could talk about the oil industry for several hours because I spent 39 years in that industry. So I'm very familiar with the economics of everything from drilling wells to refining crude oil. And that is exactly right. We drill a lot of wells that don't make any money at all. So when one of them finally hits oil, 90% do not. When that one finally hits oil, we got to make not only the $50 million that it costs to drill that well, plus the 10 others that we got to drill for the $1 billion platform if we're in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. So we've got to be able to pay for that, plus all those other dry holes as well. So that's why the oil industry has to hit it big, because a lot of times they don't hit it. And yes, they have billions of dollars of assets. If you don't make billions of dollars of profit, well, then you're not using it.
High risk, so high profit.
What's that?
High profit because high risk.
And exactly right. Yep.
But
All
then
right,
again,
let's keep going here because I'm going to run out of time. What are profits used for? 5 different ways that profits are used. The first one is to compensate owners for taking a risk. We're just talking about that. Second is bonus payments to employees. Now, this is payment to employees over and above their salaries. So this would be something where the business decides they're going to take a portion of their profits. They're going to distribute it among the employees. Why would they do that? Because they want to say, hey, employees, we had a great year. Let's keep the good times rolling. I don't want you to leave and go someplace else because you're expertise is very good. I want you to stay with me so that we can continue to make good money. And so therefore, a smart business will try to entice its employees to stay with it instead of going away. Yes. No, okay.
Yeah, so basically, that's the bonus that they increase morale and have a worker.
Morale and incentive, yeah, to stay. Invest to grow capacity. This typically is the greatest source, or the greatest use for profits, is to invest to grow the business. If a business is successful, they've been selling what they can make, generally they're going to want to expand, look for more customers, sell more product, and so on. So they invest to grow capacity. They can also invest in research and development with two potential outcomes. One is new products. We saw that yesterday with the civilization game. And the other one is production methods. Production methods are things like perhaps the assembly line. When it was invented by, well, actually it wasn't invented, it was better utilized by Henry Ford to reduce cost. If cost can be reduced, that can either lead to higher profits or lower prices, which will bring in more customers. The fifth use is to basically save it for future investment, which would be any of the other four. So now the question is, who benefits from higher business profits? And I would suggest that it's all five stakeholders of every business. What is a stakeholder? A stakeholder is somebody who has an interest in a decision or a situation. So in this case, there are five stakeholders for every business: the owners, the employees, the customers, the suppliers, and the community that the business operates. Five stakeholders, and they all benefit from higher profits. If there's a greater profits, then owners will be more highly compensated for taking a risk, because no business is guaranteed to be successful, because nobody is guaranteed or forced to buy the product. Employees, obviously better if bonus payments are made. When the business grows to build capacity, customers benefit, suppliers benefit, because now the business is using more of their raw material that they're selling. And the community benefits as well, because higher profits leads to more tax revenue. So the community can use that hopefully in a good way. When companies invest in research and development for new products or lower costs, who benefits? Customers do. So bottom line, everybody benefits from a profitable business. There's many, many ways to do so. A hypothetical question that people on the left tend to focus on, so I want to address it directly here. What would happen if an owner keeps all the profits for themselves? You know, the so-called fat cat who's making millions of dollars because they're not distributing, they just decided to keep it all for themselves. What's going to happen? He'll lose some employees, right? Because the competition will take away. What else is going to happen? Sorry? Hold that thought. That could happen, yes.
Hypothetically, he's not spending any money to improve the research product.
Exactly right. He's not doing this right here. So what's going to happen to his customer base? They're going to go away, because theoretically his competitors are doing that as well. So therefore, your response the next time you hear somebody say that, oh, you know, owners are just going to keep all the money for themselves, your response is actually, no, that's a liquidation strategy. It's either going bankrupt because they're going to lose their customers, or it is liquidating the company because they're not growing, they're not creating new products, they're going to lose their customer base, and so all they're doing is just liquidating the company. So that's the response if that sort of thing happens.
Well, and chances are they're spending the money. They personally are spending the money, putting it back out into the community as well. So unless they're an Ebenezer Scrooge, the money is still going back into the economy.
It's going into the economy, but it's not going into their business.
Right.
So therefore, the business is going to fail. The economy is going to see the money ending one way or the other. But in this case, they're going to go. So there's an answer to a question the next time you get something like that. What behaviors does the potential for profit encourage? Profits provide the incentive to maximize sales revenue by meeting customer needs and to minimize cost via efficiencies to reduce price. No profits means no incentive to meet customer needs or lower prices. So when somebody says, oh, I want to spend money on this particular social program and I just want to raise corporate tax rates, what's that going to do? It's going to lower profits. Is that free money? No, it is not, because we now know that there are things that are not going to be done to as great extent as they would have otherwise. So when the government says, oh, we're just going to take it away from corporations, they don't need it anyway. Absolutely not. These things aren't going to happen. So that is not free money when they raise corporate tax rates. Okay, so now what would you do? This is anybody here play a varsity sport or compete maybe on a traveling team at a very high level? Yes, what's your sport? Baseball. Baseball, okay, and why do you play?
Run in maybe for, just get really good.
Okay, and what would make you really good?
Practice.
Lots of practice, okay? And how much do you practice each season?
Every day except like against.
Okay, and what if you were limited to 30 minutes a day? Would that affect your ability? And how would it affect things?
You wouldn't progress as fast, and you might actually start running out.
Okay, and do you win every time you play?
No,
Why not?
because FBS, that's it.
And why do you keep playing if you're not winning every time?
It's just, that's the sport, I guess.
Because you enjoy the sport and you say, I'm going to be good enough that I'm good. I'm going to have a chance to win. Yeah, exactly right. So one more hand back here, somebody else. That's all. Okay. All right. Nobody else? Well, okay. These are very typical answers. So thank you very much. I didn't mean to, be too inquisitive on you, but yes, these are very, very typical answers. So regardless of whatever your sport is, generally at some point you're looking to become some kind of a champion. And what if we said, no, we're not going to allow that. We're going to take that away. Because why? We're going to do socialized athletics. So imagine that your sport is basketball and I'm playing. So if I make a basket and I get 2 points for that and you don't get anything at all, and that is so unfair. I get everything, you get nothing. So we're going to socialize. That's what we say. If I shoot a basket, well, now we're only doing 2-point shots. So if I make a 2-point basket, I get a point, but you do too. And if you make a basket, you get a point, but I do too. So the question that I like to ask people is, let's suppose, since you answered my question on baseball, suppose your sport was basketball, and what I just did was going on. Or let's suppose every time you cross the plate, each of you gets half a run. Okay, will that affect your willingness to play the sport?
I don't know, actually.
And why is that?
I think it's actually less fair because. I don't know.
Would you want to practice as hard?
No, because if they score 50, I think we score nothing. It's a tie.
It's a tie game, that's right. So what happens in basketball, in fact, what would happen is there's really no incentive to play good offense because you're not going to get all the points anyway. And there's no incentive to play good defense either because you're going to get half the points when they score on you. So there's no incentive to play good anything at that point. And that is the point of, and so therefore there's no incentive to become good at any aspect of the game. And so that is a real problem with when you take away the incentive for excellence, mediocrity is what results. We continue on. Socialized test taking. You imagine a situation where if you're taking a test and you studied hard, you earned a 95, but you only get a 75 because that was the average score across the class, and everybody gets the same score under socialized test taking. Over time, would that reduce your willingness to study very hard, especially if you're trying to get into college with good grades and everything? Yes, it would. And so what would happen in this particular case, if everybody's getting the same grade, those who would typically contribute in the 90s are going to be contributing less and less and less because they're saying, hey, I'm getting no credit for this. I could be doing something else, and I use my time more wisely. Meanwhile, those who are only contributing 55 points, let's say, they're getting away with it for free. They're not really having to do much at all. So they do less and less because they're getting something for nothing. And so the whole thing deteriorates. That's another problem with socialism. When there's no incentive to perform, then people do not. Lastly, talk a little bit about socialized group projects. It can be a very big frustration. I know a lot of you are homeschooling, so maybe this doesn't apply as much, but if you're in a public school and you've got 4 people on a project and one person's not pulling their weight, somebody else says, you know what, I'm not going to allow this project to fail, so therefore they put in twice the time. That can be a real disincentive to doing well. Yes?
I'm not a private homeschool. I hate doing all this.
Yeah, that could be too. All right, so socialism eliminates the individual motivation to excel, encourages mediocrity, greatly reduces the penalty for poor performance. Any thoughts or questions on that? Does that make sense, given a couple of examples that we just had here? Yes.
So I'm just curious, what arguments would the socialists give in counter to this?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for asking that one. What they will say is that their fundamental core belief is they don't believe it's fair that some people end up with far more than others. It is something that they just have a very difficult time considering to be, in their definition, fair. And so for them, some of what I was talking about yesterday, that it's very important to redistribute things so that everybody gets roughly the same amount. And with that kind of philosophy, they continue to want to believe that everybody will just work as hard as they would have otherwise, from each according to their ability, to each according to needs. Who said that?
Karl Marx.
Karl Marx, that's right. And they just have a very difficult time reconciling why people wouldn't continue to work and contribute more than they're receiving. So it's really a denial of human nature. Man, that's the fallacy. Okay, keep going here. All right, so human nature, excellence, and ethics. Is it ethical for an athlete to practice and play harder to win? Or are they being greedy? Because somebody's going to lose, right? Is it ethical for a musician to practice and play better for more applause, awards, and ticket sales? Or are they being greedy because now some other musician isn't going to get very many ticket sales? Or they're not going to sell one. No downloads. Is it ethical for a student to study harder, get better grades, get into a better college, get a better job at the expense of somebody who didn't study? Or are they just being greedy? Someone to ask for a higher salary or to pay a lower price, which means somebody else is going to have to make up the difference. And even think about it this way. Is it ethical for someone to think about and do just the right things to attract the love of his or her life? Because if they get that great guy or that great girl, that means nobody else does. In all areas of human life, whether it's athletics, music, academics, finance, romance, excellence is what people strive for. Why? Because of competition in everything we do. It is simply part of human nature. And that is one of the great downfalls of the socialist philosophy, is because it denies human nature. That's why I put this presentation together. When activities are socialized, human nature is denied. Results are poor due to a lack of competition and reward recognition. Now they would say, well, it's not fair that some people get rewarded and others don't. Well, okay. But as long as everybody has an equal opportunity, then that's the way it is. That's the freedom. Okay, business is human nature. Profits for a business are like scoring points for an athlete or gamer. Applause, awards, ticket sales for a musician, or test points for a student. Why is that? Why are profits for a business like scoring points for an athlete? Why do you think that might be? Yes.
Because it's proven your hard work, like gain.
Sure, yeah, that's right. A little more generically, measures performance quality. Yeah, so exactly right. Investing for a business is like practicing for an athlete or studying for a student. Why is that? Yeah.
Because it makes yourself like.
Exactly right. Improved performance. You see how these link together here? One measures quality, the other one is how you improve. So business is just an extension of human nature. It's not something wildly different. Is it ethical for a company to seek to increase profit? I would argue, sure, it's ethical, just as ethical as it is for an athlete to score more points. Is it greedy if it does that? I would argue no. It's just trying to be successful for the benefit of owners and the other stakeholders, like we talked about where profits go. So, a bit of a summary here. Because of competition and the profit incentive, capitalism rewards business people with good ideas who best meet customer quality and price needs. Can profits be too high? I would argue no. Why? High profits, and there's a summary here, provide incentive for your competition to offer a higher quality product or a lower price to attract business. Okay? As a business person in a capitalist system, I cannot do well for myself unless I do well for you and you and you and you and you and you and everybody. I have to care what you want. That is another aspect of what I'll call the beauty of capitalism. For me to be successful, I have to care what you want and I have to deliver that. Not only just do that, but I got to do it at a price better than my competition. Otherwise, I can't be successful. Socializing business by limiting, reducing, or redistributing profits reduces the ability and incentive to improve, resulting in lower quality products, less consumer choice, higher prices, and a poorer economy. That's the effect of raising business taxes. It's lower profits, and all those things that we talked about don't happen as much as they would. Yes.
Toyota, back in 2002, 2005, came out with a Prius, and they were losing about $4,000 on every part of the whole. That was a lot. But they figured that people would like them, and all of a sudden, what do you see on the road?
Lots of them, yeah. So, right. So that is an example of a business making a independent private decision to take a short-term loss for what they hope was going to be a long-term benefit.
Price being down to them to make.
Yes, right. And by quantity, economy of scale, producing many more, then they could get their costs down, and then they could make a profit. Yeah, great example. Okay. Quick question here. The average United States business makes only blank dollars of profit on every $100 of sales. What I want to do is just get a quick show of hands. How many people feel that the average United States company makes over $50 profit on every $100 of sales? I recognize some don't make any, right? Some make a lot more. So does anybody here feel that an average business makes over $50 profit on a $100 sale? Good. They don't. Okay, $30. Over 30 on $100 worth of sales. All right, 20. Maybe 20. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Maybe a couple more, think 20. Yeah. All right. 15. Okay, I see 10 hands up. Over 10. More. Okay. All right. 5. Okay. Less than 5. You got anybody left? Yeah. Okay. It's actually there are ongoing companies that make less than 5. Typically, grocery stores are in that realm. The actual number 8. $8 of profit on $100 worth of sales. When this survey was given, I think about 5 years ago, the average person in the United States picked a number over 30. $36. That is why so many people feel that it's okay to tax business, because they think they're making gigantic profits. But in reality, what happens, it's nowhere near that. If there's a business that's making $36 a profit, competitors will swarm in, unless the risk is just absurd. They will swarm in, and that kind of money is going to attract a lot of investors. Figure out how to make that happen. So $8 a profit, little fun fact. Because the primary principle is equality of results, socialism, once again, eliminates the individual motivation to excel, encourages mediocrity, and perhaps most importantly, greatly reduces the penalty for poor performance. Okay. Socialism focused on equal results, as opposed to capitalism embraces unequal results because that means more pie for everyone. So we get a much bigger pie. Yeah, it's not equally spread, but generally, even the lowest slices do better in capitalism than they do under socialism. Sustainability, I mentioned yesterday, capitalism is sustainable. Why? Because it's made up of free and voluntary action. Socialism is not, because it depends on forcing controls. All right, we got about 8 minutes left here. I want to take 5 minutes and have a quick discussion on minimum wage. The Fair Labor Standards Act of 1935 determines the minimum wage for employees in private and public sectors, both federal and state governments. Under the FLSA, non-exempt hourly employees must be paid the minimum wage or higher. The current minimum wage is $7.25 in both federally as well as in the state of Idaho. Some people believe it's unethical for business to pay only $8 or $9. Some of these get a lot of airtime on television too. They believe $15 per hour is appropriate. Here's a few of them right there. They actually did pass this in Seattle. We know they've been striking at some McDonald's. So the question is, should the federal minimum wage be raised to $15? So what I want to do, I know that it's likely it's going to be a negative audience here, but I want to rack your brain a little bit, see if you can come up with a few pros why that would be a good idea, or maybe just parrot some things that you've heard, and then we'll beat them back. Yes.
I don't know. But I've heard from some people though that having the $15 minimum wage would, give people more incentive to work because they know they maybe could earn a little bit more money.
Yep, that's what's out there, sure.
Because then the businesses are trying to make their, money more efficient.
Okay, so the argument could be pay them $15 an hour and those workers will magically be able to be very efficient and valuable.
What I was saying was that the business owners will try to do their business more efficiently.
Okay, so you're saying if the business owners are forced to highly overpay their workers, then they're gonna have to create some efficiency somewhere to stay alive. Something like that, yeah.
I've worked for $20 an hour. It's not fun.
I worked for $1.10 an hour. That wasn't fun either, but it was my first job. It was good. Yeah, so it's not as much fun to make $7 an hour compared to 15. As long as you keep it out there, okay?
Well, so this is just my guess, but what if minimum wage would change like first how old you are? Because if you were an adult, then you would need more money, but versus a teenager like me, I'm just looking for money to save, not this, I mean, a little bit.
Bicycle, rollers, and shoes.
Yeah, but I have some point.
Yeah, okay, so you're suggesting a sliding scale. A little bit lower wage for younger, higher wage for older. Okay.
But the problem with that, would be, I know it's 16-year-olds, it's more harder than 30-year-olds or 40-year-olds or 25-year-olds.
Yep. Yeah, so hey, yeah, where's the flexibility on the part of the business owner to be able to say, hey, you're worth more, you're worth less? Yes.
So something that minimum wage proponents have argued is that $15 an hour is simply not enough to live on, especially if you're working full time. And they'll bring up real examples of people who have been working full time at minimum wage jobs for multiple years.
Yeah, it's a real sad situation if someone has reached adulthood and the only skills and knowledge they have is $7 an hour. All right, I've collected a bunch of pros here, and we'll just run through these a little bit, and then we'll talk through the longer list of cons. People deserve a living wage to support themselves. To beat this down, the argument there is that there's only about 25% of the adult population. Only 25% of people working at a minimum wage job are actually adults with a family to support. 75% of the people working at a minimum wage job do not have that situation. So if someone puts that out there and said, oh, how could somebody working at minimum wage support themselves, a wife and 2 children? And the answer is you can't and you shouldn't have to. But that's the way it is. 75% are not in that situation. Workers with a family support cannot do so. Increasing the minimum is fair and the right thing to do. So that is something that they promote. People on the left are very, very concerned about what's fair. Their definition, of course, but their definition is that if it's not right, if it offends them, then that is not fair. So a way to have a discussion with someone on the left is you have to talk about things in terms of fairness. And I'll give you a couple of comments on that in a minute. Paying workers more means those workers will have more to spend and they will help the economy. Okay, the fallacy in this argument here is that if the business is paying more to these workers, then it has necessarily less that it can spend on other things. And so the net effect on the economy is at best 0 and very likely negative, because now the business is not going to be able to likely exceed if it's overpaying somebody to what they're worth. Businesses are being subsidized by government, paying welfare benefits to minimum wage employees. The notion here is that saying, hey, I got an employee there, I need a job for them to do, it's only worth $8 an hour. If I pay them $8 an hour, I can't afford to pay them 15. And they're saying, well, if the government is paying welfare to that person because they're only making $8 an hour, now the business is benefiting because they're not having to pay this person what this person needs to live. Well, of course, this business is not a welfare situation. If it's going to charge more than the $8 an hour that person's worth, somebody has to make that up. We'll talk about that. When someone's paid more than their value, something or someone else must make up the difference. So we're going to talk about a few of those things here. Minimum wage employees are potentially given less hours to work. If someone's only worth $8 an hour and I got to pay them 15, that means I'm losing $7 an hour on every hour I pay them. Right? So something has to make that up. So I can say, you know what, I'm going to give them less hours. So that as a smart business person, I'm losing less money by having to pay this person. So I don't want to guilt. Yes.
Workers that
Well, yeah, right. So if my competition wants to pay my $8 an hour worker $10, go for it, right? That's the way it is. That person, that I'm paying them $8 an hour, if they feel they're worth 10 and somebody else can pay them 10, well, then fine, they can go. I'll pay them the $8 because that's what I feel the job is worth to me. Yes.
Well, that's the whole idea, the entry level jobs that don't pay minimum wage. You go there, you learn a skill, and then you have the incentive to want to improve yourself, to get a better job that pays more. And if everybody starts out, and it won't matter what the minimum wage is, that will always be the entry level wage, no matter what.
As long as
It'll always.
right, whatever it happens to be is just.
Exactly.
So if you raise it, you're going to eliminate first jobs for teenagers because what has McDonald's done in response? Kiosks all over the place, right? You go out and self-order. So it doesn't, so you might, a few people might get a bump from $7 to 15, but a lot of people are going to go from $7 to what? Zero. That's exactly right. And they also don't learn basic skills like you just talked about for their second job. In other words, some other way to make up the difference is minimum wage employees could be required to work harder, faster, and smarter, which could be very difficult for someone. If they're at minimum wage, chances are they don't have a lot of skills, so they're going to have to work really hard to make up that kind of difference. Yes. Automation. Yep. Automation and replacement. That's exactly what happens. And there are studies that some people have done that show that that doesn't really occur. There's all kinds of problems with those studies. A couple other things, other employees might be required to work harder and faster. You know, the other employees that have been there for a while really know what's going on. They're getting paid more. Okay, well, then we have to pay them more too because they're going to have to work harder, faster, smarter to make up for these others that are getting overpaid. The experienced employees that are already being paid just above the minimum will want more. If I've been at this particular job for, let's say, 5 years, and now I'm making $15 an hour because frankly I earned it, and someone else comes in, they know nothing, and they have to be paid $15 an hour. Plus, I got to show them what to do. Then that's going to make me very upset, and I'm going to say, hey, either pay me more, or how is this fair? And that actually is an argument that works well with people on the left. Think about fairness. How is it fair to someone who's been there for a number of years, and now they're making the same? Now, of course, the left will respond, well, that's okay, pay them more too. Okay. That's why almost none of them have ever had a real job or had to make a payroll. We got to raise prices to customers. Of course, that's going to be tough. Lower profits means less investment. And I'm just about out of time, so I'll take one more thought.
Robots don't care how much they pay.
Yes, that's right. Robots, as long as they get oiled,
I was going to say, yet.
they are good to go. Yeah, nice. Couple other things, and I'm going to wrap up. Paying employees a minimum cash amount prevents someone from choosing of their own free will to work for a lower amount in exchange for being trained by an owner who's going to spend extra time on them. But if that will be precluded if the owner has to pay them more than they're worth. If $15 an hour is good, why not fit $25, $50, or $100 an hour? That is an argument that they absolutely can't refute. Some of them, if they really have no economic savvy, will just say, well, yeah, go ahead and pay me. At some point, they understand, though, that you can't do this forever. And there's stuff there. The last comment I want to make on this one is because a business is private property, the business owner has the freedom and responsibility to make the best decisions or suffer consequences. It's impossible for a politician to know what is best. This argument holds zero water for someone on the left. They don't care. In their view, business people are rich. They've got too much money anyway. They should just go ahead and pay it. So this, of course, makes a lot of sense for us in this group here who are liberty-minded, because this is, in my view, the ultimate argument. But it doesn't work for people on the left. So if you want to win an argument or win a discussion, you got to go on the issues of fairness, and that's where it revolves around those other notions. Okay, I'm going to skip this and go to my conclusion. All right. Everybody has responsibilities. We've talked a lot about business responsibilities. You can also look at responsibilities in terms of what the employee needs to provide to the business in return for their pay. Lots of decisions need to consider all the different stakeholders that are involved. Profit is what a business has left over after receiving sales revenue, paying all business expenses and taxes. And again, business expenses already includes the salary for the employee. So what I was talking about was money over and above. Profits are typically a very small part of the product selling price, 8% on average in the United States. Yet they provide the motivation for business owners to do all kinds of things. Increase production capacity, improve product quality, create new products, improve efficiency, lower price, reward owners and employees, all from that 8% of the selling price. That's the motivation. When a business is profitable, everybody benefits. We talked about owners, customers, employees, suppliers, community. Very wide list of beneficiaries. And I would say therefore that is the most ethical outcome of all. Thanks for your participation. I appreciate all the hands. That was really good stuff.